Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures. Today we are exploring one of the most urgent topics facing marketing teams: how to build trust in AI-powered workflows. As more tools promise speed and scale, the risks around accuracy, governance, and data quality are growing too. In this episode, we'll discuss how marketers are navigating these challenges, from hallucinations and compliance to data integrity and campaign execution. We'll also hear how AI is being used to personalize outreach at scale and what best in class governance looks like. But before we dive in, I'd love for our guests to introduce themselves and share a bit about their background and current focus. So, Madelyne, would you like to start and give a sentence on yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name's Madelyne Oliver. I am the Senior Marketing Operations Manager over at Cloudflare. And I'm based in Austin, Texas. So it's like 7 a.m. my time right now, hence how I look like I just woke up. But I work with ABM operations, ABM marketers. I own and manage a tool called Demandbase, and I've been at Cloudflare for about almost like 2.5, coming up 3 years now. So
Thank you so much. Phil, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, thanks for having me. So my name's Phil Miller. I am the AI product marketing manager for ADP, which is our application and data platform here at Progress. It contains kind of 5 core technologies to go along with many other technologies that are in other business units within Progress. So kind of we go right from the infrastructure through the data and information layer and into the kind of UI and UX experience layer with our product like Sitefinity. My background is in data. So, I start off at the kind of fundamentals with AI having the right data at the right time. Here to kind of talk about the experiences that we've had and kind of get some insight into what other people are doing in the marketing space using AI. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great introductions. Thank you both. So let's kick off by tackling the big question. What are the biggest challenges B2B marketers face when implementing AI tools today, from hallucinations to fragmented data? What have you seen? And how are your teams approaching these risks?
well, I know I'll speak more from like the experience of just like being at my company and in my role. Some of the challenges that we are seeing is just finding the right AI tools that have a lot of credibility and trust and that actually are AI. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, Joaquin, a lot of hype out there. And so there's a lot of tools that are posing as AI, but they're not really AI. So trust and credibility, definitely compliance, since we are a cybersecurity company, and making sure that the data coming through is clean and clear, and we're respecting people's personal information, and ultimately, like, whatever we integrate as a company doesn't put the company at risk, doesn't put the brand at risk. And it really does depend, once you get past that point, on like finding the right tool and getting past compliance and legal and whatnot. When it comes to the actual integration, which is more where I kind of operate, like in that operations execution mode of technology integration, it really depends upon your data and how clean your data, how good the quality is. And that is something most companies really struggle with, and we're not immune to it. And it's something that we're like actively working on. So I think like ultimately, like, AI is just going to highlight for you as a company, like if your data needs like a ton of cleanup or not, because it just feeds off of the source of your data. So that's kind of like my perspective.
It's kind of reflective in kind of my thinking, what we see with customers, what I've seen internally here at Progress, and conversations that I've had with kind of like the wider community in terms of, you know, people, process, product, or platform, should we say? The people, that is, naturally a blocker. If you're a 9 to 5 and you've been doing the same job for 20 plus years, and you come in on a Monday and you expect that Monday to look like your last Monday and your Friday to look the same as the Monday, That world no longer exists, right? It is being held up at the moment in some cases in terms of what still exists for me. Okay, give this time for these tools to embed properly, give these startup companies enough runway, and you're going to be playing catch up, right? So, you really got to take the people along the journey of AI. It also changes the process. So it's great, we have these products that do a yearly release, right? I do a yearly software release, and my PI planning and my development is, months and then into the year, right? You can't do that anymore, right? It's what can you release this week? What can you release tomorrow? Right? How can you work with the community to release, much like the foundational models that ChatGPT released? What can you release today where you can get feedback, active feedback from the community to say this is what I want in the product, right? This is how I want my product to perform, and then it's that platform layer in your business. And Madelyne, you touched on it with the data. And really that comes down to kind of some of the challenges that come out of the tools today, so hallucinations, data biases, a lack of human reasoning and understanding, arbitrary data cutoffs in the model knowledge of the world, a lack of explainability. AI is still a black box, and, putting it in enterprise or corporate environments where regulatory or governance or security is a concern, then you really need to understand how that AI is going to operate. And a lack of robustness. I can give you the same answer to the same question. The sky is blue. It's always blue. It's going to be blue, right? But the AI can hallucinate. It rolls its dice and it will give you its blueberry because it's got blue in it, right? And then it rolls that dice and it lands on a random number that it shouldn't do. And now you get the sky is blueberry colored or purple or pink, right? And that's because you are asking for determined results from a non-deterministic system. So this is a stochastic, random system that I know that AI people will kind of balk at this, but it is rolling the dice every time you ask the question, and it just uses its weights and figures with inside the model to kind of go, well, this is what I know about the world, so I think it should be this, right? But those results can come back with those false positives, and it can confidently give you the incorrect answer. So those are the kind of challenges as we see them in our customers, in our partners, with technology providers, the AI providers at the moment. And so for the enterprise or larger organizations, it is important that you understand that. And it's not a bug, it's a feature, right? Hallucinations and things like that are a feature of the core fundamental technology. So understanding that and then building those products and services on top of it will get you much further than kind of just relying on those models kind of out of the box.
I think the next question is pretty obvious. Let's explore now the governance side. How are your teams ensuring accuracy and compliance when using AI at scale?
From a technology perspective, we are an AI powered organization. We're not AI providers. So I'm not here. In the most part, we've got a few experiments running in the company, but I'm not here training models to release to my customers. What I'm trying to do is put rules-based systems that can deliver determined results. So we put these rules-based systems, whether that be rules at the data layer of how we model the data or how we search that data, or whether it is rules about how we classify that data, how we present the data to the AI. So we have things that allow us to augment users' queries with the information that's important to that query to the AI, right? So retrieval augmented generation. We use a knowledge graph approach, but all of these things, and even then we have a business rules engine on top of that. All of these things are to provide a language of your data and the information that resides in your business, about the domain your business operates in, to the AI so that it can deliver determined results. So it's kind of like putting a human lens over the data and translating that for the machine so that when you put the data in, you know what you're putting in, you know why you're putting in it, you know who should have access to it and things like that. And importantly as well, we we're checking it on the way out as well. So when it gives you the answer, has it hallucinated some PII information? Is it giving access to information that user shouldn't have? Again, you have this multi-step process with all these human curated rules that allow you to interrogate that answer before it ever reaches the end user, right? And so that's kind of been our approach with our customers. And again, these are large enterprise organizations that have they're either in the pharmaceutical place or the financial services, or they're really heavily regulated environments, right? Getting this wrong, millions of dollars, right? Not just from the operational side of things in their company. Something went wrong, we did something bad, whatever. It's the regulators that will come in and find them significant figure sums of money of their annual turnover as a result of these actions being incorrect by the AI. So that's what we do, and kind of how we're governing that use of data between not only in the company and how people access it, but also between the company and the AIs itself, right? Obviously, you can use your own models and have those air gaps and things, but these publicly available models, they are really, really powerful and really, really good at doing, if you're really good at programming and pre-prompting and things like that, they can do really specific work for you. But you really want to make sure you've got those controls in place.
Yeah. Fair points. I really like your perspective from like the AI product side. It's very interesting to hear because like we're like your customer, you know, working at Cloudflare. So like from the company side, like the customer side who would like buy your AI product or adopt your AI product. You're right. Like we have a lot of regulations and a lot at stake. So like if we received a product that didn't like live up to the standards, it's a quick no from like our IT team, right? And so it really is about like validating the product first. And then like, I think from the customer side, when we think of governance and accuracy at scale, it's like once we have something that's been vetted by the IT teams, that's passed all the protocols and security checks. It's more like internally around the people and processes that you spoke of earlier, of like having either written documentation or trainings that are acting as those checkpoints, those embedded checkpoints for us humans to have these kind of safeguards that treat AI more like a co-pilot rather than a replacement, and allow and give power back to, let's say, the ABM marketer who is adopting, and using AI technology within demand base as an example. And is being able to then have that power to review, let's say, the AI summary that the tool spits out and checks it against an AI playbook that internally as a team we've developed at the company to make sure, okay, is this fact check first information? Is this giving me the right like AI summary? Does this seem valid? Are there any biases in the data, that kind of thing? And then following those like kind of specific playbooks, then taking the action item that I still think falls on humans at the end of the day. Like no matter how advanced AI gets, I still think that where we retain a job or power is the decision making. AI spits out the data and provides the resources. In that way, it is the co-pilot to your work, but it isn't the ultimate decision maker. That still falls on the human brain. The human brain makes those strategic moves. The human brain takes action. The human brain is what ensures that, all of these tools coming into an environment meets quality, meets compliance, creates consistency across teams, ensures that scaling doesn't mean slipping. So in that way, I think and I'm kind of like getting a little off topic, but it's interesting how like governance and scaling, I think, will actually also shift the roles that the people play in the processes, where no more are they doing like the grunt work is what we call it. That can be passed off to these tools, and more they're going to be in like roles of decision making and roles where they're being more strategic with their thought, right? And so I think it's also going to kind of like as you could say, a consequence or a result of all of this, like it's tipping the scales where now like we are going to just shift in how we do work, so yeah, I think like it's interesting to see it like starting out in a small seed. So just for like reality touch point, that example that I gave, like I own a platform. It's not an AI product. It's like your regular ABM tool. But the ABM tool, the vendor has introduced AI as a feature in the platform to enhance it and also make the lives of the user tool easier. And it functions very similar to other tools like, Zoom AI summaries and stuff like that. It's not novel. It's not like rocket science. It's an enhancement. It's a feature. And in a way, this feature has like replaced the quote unquote work that a salesperson would normally do to qualify an account. That's the task. That's the actual job that the AI is doing. It's qualifying an account based off of reading data signals and everything that's feeding into the product, the platform. So it's done that part of the job, leaving the salesperson the only job left, which is to validate the data coming from the AI featured enhancement and make sure that, yes, this account is in fact qualified. I will take the next action step, which is to call a lead or a contact associated with the account and try and get this account closed. So that is a real world example of how like, AI technology is being embedded in MarTech tools that we already have incorporated into our company. And yes, it's replacing the grunt work, but it's leaving the executive decision making. And then as our job of like, marketing tech operations, acting on behalf of the company, we make sure those AI playbooks are in place to help that seller fact check, have those checkpoints, do the human review, do the fact validation. That is how we ensure that governance is at play. And then as we scale, everything is more accurate and up to the different standards and approval flows that we have now put in place because we have this AI, feature acting as a co-pilot to the process of the actual work. So just want to give like a kind of like a real world example, because a lot of the stuff we talk about, it's easy to understand in theory, but then when it comes to like actually practically putting it into place, sometimes it's a little hard for us to like fathom what does that look like? Where do we start, right?
No, that's all right. You raised some really interesting points in terms of having these policies in place, mechanizing those policies so that they can scale with your growth ambitions of those particular use cases. It's taking a similar approach to how we tell customers: start off small, find a small valuable use case in your organization with limited data set maybe, or a limited number of users, or whatever it might be. Prove out that, and rather than building point solutions, build a platform of information inside your organization that is connected and contextualized again in your world, expressed in the language that you describe your business, your customers. They might be called users or customers or, cloudifiers or whatever it might be, right? That you use as the moniker inside your business. Well, express that to the machine so the machine can really understand that. The governance at scale is always going to rely on a combination of the technology and the human, right? And the human's place, as you mentioned, is abstracting it away really from the, like I say, the lower level tasks, but it's also abstracting it away from the technology with AI orchestration tools, with a strong agile
Mm-hmm.
kind of data platform underneath that with UI driven environments and so on and so forth. You're moving the kind of transformational discussions from the architects, the engineers, the developers. You're moving it closer to the subject matter experts, and those are the people often where we see people starting these projects, right? It's someone in marketing going, I need analytics data, Phil, from this. I need to be able to run an SEO at scale on this and create dynamic changes to pages and information based on this information, right? And it's that I'm seeing in my own business. No.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
But
so going back to that human again, it's so fundamental to understand that at the moment we don't have AGI, we don't have ASI, right? These are models that are really good at doing tasks that they are properly tasked with, proper prompt engineering, data fine tuning, and things like that to those things. Where it comes into its own is when you have that higher level thinking from people inside the business that know the business, that can make changes in that. And one of the ways you govern that is because they're often responsible for those changes. So that's one of the reasons why, when we launch these things, go, well, make sure this works, guys, because I want to do more of it. But also I think they're the ones that need it to deliver that value. It comes down to enabling the change in your organization, changing the way you use these tools, and kind of going, I have this tool, here's what it can do briefly. You come back to me and tell me what you want to deliver, and then we can work together to collaborate and create a governed, secure environment where you can operate this at scale. Because truly that's where the scale will come from in having these applications. If you don't trust your AI, if you don't trust your data, if you don't trust your people, I give the example of, why do we interview people? We interview people because we want to trust but verify their information that they have in their CV, that they can do this job, right? And when we hire that person, great, he or she goes through training, they come out at the end of it. They're human beings, they will make a mistake. Absolutely, right? So they will make a mistake. The difference between hiring a human being to do that job and hiring an AI is an AI can make 1,000 mistakes in the time that it takes the human to make one, right? And it's really interesting when we talk about hallucinations and we talk about the fallibility of AI, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? That has that in there. But humans are just as fallible. Call the stuff that we do mistakes, we call hallucinations for AI. They're one and the same, right? Our brains are predisposed in some cases to see things that aren't there, place things that are there. You never see your nose, right? It's there, but your brain just removes it. So we have all of these biases already in how we view the world. And so it's interesting when people talk about using AI, it's kind of like, well, what's your error rate with a human being right now? So if I can halve that error rate, that's going to halve the cost to your business, right? Awesome. Okay, but remembering that they can make those same mistakes, but now at a much larger scale.
Yeah. Listening to your conversation I think it's interesting to think of how are your processes without AI, and then how are they with AI. And I think a good way of planning how you will work in is thinking without AI first, like how you manage knowledge without AI, how you make tacit knowledge, things that you're describing, for example, things that happen at the office, things that are intuitive, things that are experience based, things that are hard to formalize, to how you make that knowledge explicit into something that is codified, that is structured, that is documented. And thinking of that without AI, I think it will make then your processes with AI way more powerful. And AI only works well with explicit knowledge, and then of course it can accelerate things as you were describing, Phil, and make things good, very good, but things bad, really bad, right, really quickly.
So that's one of the approaches we take with our customers, because one of the pushback that we have from people about our technology is, yeah, but creating a knowledge graph, that's a lot of work, right? I don't understand what taxonomies are or lexicographies or ontologies are, right? And it's really difficult. But what we find is you've already got that in your business. It's already expressed in one way, shape, or form in your business. You just don't realize that you have that language there. And that's like really important because, you know, some organizations are facing two ends of the spectrum, right? So we've got older companies who have got people who are literally aging out, right? This implicit knowledge is going to age out of your business. And then you've got these new employees who don't have any of that implicit knowledge, right? They are brand new to your business. And so if you're able to mechanize that language, that implicit knowledge, the kind of thing that's not said but done in your organization, if you're able to express that to the machine at a machine scale, you've really scaled that human function to the machine. That higher level thinking, sometimes you have made to kind of go into the machine, which is one of the reasons why we can do these things. We can um, do these new use cases or new products or new services is because of the way we're expressing the data to the AI. And it's not a core message. Like, I've not really, in my role as an AI product marketing manager, I was a customer success manager before that, and so on and so forth. But the message hasn't changed, right? If you want to do this, you want to do this right, then start off with the data that is going to run your business, right? Make sure that data is in a shape where people don't have to go, I want an answer. Well, that'll take 6 weeks. Because a regulator will look at you and go, I'm sorry, what? But we found this incident and you say it's going to take 6 weeks to get us an answer, which actually turns into 12 because they didn't realize how complicated the problem was. That's when you get into trouble, right? Not just with the regulators, but maybe with your customers and so on and so forth, right? And so it has I think it's an added benefit that comes off of what you should be doing already as an organization. Building a connected, contextualized data platform of your data that captures the knowledge in your business and then is able to pass it to whatever application. It's a BI tool, it's a transactional application, it is a AI application, right? And it becomes even more important. I was talking about this the other day when you consider agentic AI, because what you're saying there is AI operate without any human intervention and take maybe 100 tasks away from people, right? Well, if that error rate is at 1%, right, through 100 steps, it compounds to be a 63% error rate at the end of it, right? For some research that I just read the other day, right? So this is really important that we get that answer action right for each individual task, so that when we do scale it, we get these positive results and not negative.
Yeah, I think it just further highlights, like what you're already doing right or doing wrong in your company. Like at the end of the day, it's gonna show you your true colors if you don't know it already. Do you have strong data foundations? No. Yes. Do you have good documentation and training and processes? No. Yes. Like it's just gonna highlight what you're doing right or doing wrong. And you can either take that as a company and get better, or you can create more problems for yourself by keep going down the road you're going down.
Yeah. And to be honest, and you're running out of runway.
Yeah.
Right? The rate at which the change that we're seeing, the impact that we're having in just one of our use cases, even before we added AI, so we just took the platform and connected and contextualized their data. That was able to save that organization over an hour and a half for every employee in the Netherlands, which was like 4,000 of them, right? Saving over $30 million a year. Now with AI, they're going to do the same, but it's going to save 4 hours on another application that they're building. And this one's going to go worldwide to their employees. So they have 100,000 employees. So I'm not going to do the math there, but there's a lot to save, right?
Of course.
And if you're not doing that, if you're still spending that hour and a half doing that low level task, if you're spending that 4 hours even doing the higher task, then you can't compete, right? There was a quote the other day that I read which was, you need to, if you want to do anything with AI, give AI the easy stuff to just make it complete. Give AI the hard stuff to make it easy. And then give AI the impossible stuff to make it hard. So now what you thought was unachievable becomes a larger project in your business, but you've abstracted away so much work at a lower level that you're able to address these things.
Right.
Truly transform the business.
Yeah. Yeah, and reflecting on what you said, Madelyne, that actually this is highlighting your mistakes, and if you don't have the foundations in place, and we need to remember that this is a revolution, right? And so the companies that are not prepared are the ones that will get out of the market, right? And the ones that are very well prepared, that have good foundations in place, are the ones that will succeed. I want to transition now into what is ethical in AI marketing, right? Because we are doing a lot of personalization at scale, and I'm very keen to hear what does scalable ethical AI marketing looks like, and maybe who's doing it well.
So from a ethics point of view, there are still questions that are left to be answered. There's still court cases that are ongoing. There's still legislative and regulatory frameworks that are being built around AI. One of the reasons is because of how it was developed and who developed it. Right. And I'm not casting any shade on this, but I wrote about this a few weeks ago. AI was developed by software engineers and developers and really talented individuals, the data scientists and things like that, built on, work that goes back to the 1960s and even before that with the Turing machine and Bletchley Park, right? But they were built in like a laboratory, like a science lab, and a crazy science lab locks himself away, comes out with this really cool tool and releases it to the world, right? But it didn't answer the question of how can the human handle that scale. We made the same mistake with social media, by the way. Like we released it to a world that was not ready for that interconnectedness. I could talk about like the monkey sphere and the Dunbar number of human relationships that you can have, the maximum number of relationships, and so on and so forth. But that's what happened with social media, and now we are experiencing a whole host of negative effects of it. Right? With AI, we're still in that development process. We haven't quite got it to the social media kind of integral thing. We're all in AI, so we do use it all the time, but actually the majority of people aren't using it yet. I say yet. But when they do, then we're going to have, if we're not careful, the same issues. But what we really need to do in terms of ethics is answer some really complicated philosophical challenges around AI and how we interact with it. The trolley problem for automated cars is a good example of that. Do I run over the father with the baby or the mother with the baby? I've got two choices on a road track. Which one do I choose? That's not a question that exists in a university anymore. It's a question that exists in a car manufacturer who is making automated cars today, right? And it's the same with our technologies in the AI space. We really have to look at this not just through the software development lens, but actually we need to look at it through the human being and how we are going to interact with this technology. And that's why I say I don't have answers. I have more questions, right? In terms of how do you address this ethically, right? But those questions need to be raised with the group, with your customers. How are you going to respond to certain challenges around, your thing. So healthcare information is a good example. They're kind of working towards a framework and legislation. The EU AI Act has just come out, which says, similar to what Madelyne was talking about earlier on, the final arbiter of truth in the medical diagnosis is the doctor. Okay, but I can show you a system where it will outperform a human being 100% of the time in terms of diagnosis. So now what are you saying, that we should rely on that rather than the human being? So there are real tough questions, but it is the questions that we need to ask. And it's the questions that you need to go in with your customers and think about, not just the nuts and bolts of this thing, not just the AI and the data and the thing, but this really gets to the human being. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not I'm not some sort of savant and have all the answers to these things, but I just think we need to look at it through that lens.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it's more about just like, thinking that, ethical AI means like avoiding hallucinations or bias. It comes back to the foundational question whenever you're solving a problem is, how are you doing it and why are you doing it? It's the same thing for AI. How are you using AI? How are you being intentional about it? And why are you using it? And are you using it to create customer value, create iterations of copy for, let's say, a social media ad that you're going to run for content? Or are you just cutting corners and punching in, and then that's the final copy? I think like real world examples like jump out to me, and like that use case of a B2B marketer who's using AI to, enhance, the final copy she's going to run for a social paid media ad. But I think like also too, where I see it, like aside from like the B2B business world, I see it largely being questioned right now in schools. Like students today are using AI to basically do their essays, to do their homework. And it's the teachers who are constantly bringing us back to think of the ethics of like, well, why are you using AI to completely do your essay for you? And our students, I think this is where it comes to your point about what you said of like, it's too soon and they're not ready because their brains are still developing. First of all, they're not even ready to think of it in that capacity. But that's like the system, one of the systems in our society where we are seeing like the ethics are completely being just kind of tossed out the window and the corners are being cut. The students don't know to ask those questions of like, okay, should I just use this to enhance my essay and then I'm gonna write the final bit and that's just a draft and I'll just take some of those edits, kind of like writers too. Like I'm also a children's book illustrator, and this AI also enters the literary world with publishers and writers. It's like, okay, like like we have to make sure that the writer isn't sending a final manuscript to a publisher that has been completely written by AI, but maybe has some bits of AI in there, but they still retain the ultimate decision of like, I'll take a little bit here, but I'm going to submit my final copy. I think like the ethics are so core to AI, but we as humans, first of all, are not good about ethics. And so we have to remember that AI isn't like a checklist. It isn't like, about just having this valid data source. It's consent, it's intention, it's, using it for ideation and not the final product. And so much of that thinking, that cognitive like thinking and just decision making and awareness comes down to how is it baked into processes, how is it baked into, and when I mentioned the other systems like school and the literary world, it really is more like how is that baked down into the individual self-awareness. And that's really hard because on a mass level, our society does not have high self-awareness, does not have high emotional IQ. And so, and especially for people who are still developing that, like students, young children, right? Like, I think it just blooms into like such a bigger thing than we're prepared to talk about or to regulate or to apply. And so I come kind of back to what you said earlier of like, we're not ready, but yet, like we're not ready yet. Like we may get there one day, but I think like, how to answer the core question of like, what does ethical AI look like in B2B marketing? I think we are still figuring that out because so much of just like ethics in general comes down to other parts of the human psyche and the human race that we haven't even begun to properly dissect or train or like develop. And so that dives into like much deeper discussions, much bigger topics.
So and this kind of speaks to one of the key kind of skill sets that I see people having to have in the future with AI, right? Is lifelong learning. Right. If you look at the different reports of like what are the key job stats that you're going to need and what should you have on a CV, lifelong learning is kind of the thing because you want to. I said this to somebody the other day about specialism versus generalism, right? And it kind of goes back to education. So we have, since the kind of industrial age, kind of changed our education of what we used to go to university for, right? We used to go to university in the Renaissance, in even Greek times and so on and so forth, to learn about life. You wouldn't go there to become a doctor or a lawyer or a data scientist or a biologist or whatever. You would go there and you would learn all aspects of life. And you can kind of see that reflected in the individuals that we hold up in history and go, wow, look at what they did. Da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, right? So you can see how, like, he was like Da Vinci, take for example, he was an engineer, he was a biologist, he was an artist, he was a sculptor, he was a painter, he was an inventor, right? And that's because he had this education that was fully rounded, right? And then we kind of pivoted to specialization because we mechanized things and we needed specialists to kind of, as we grew, do functions in society for us. Doctors, nurses, teachers, lawyers, firemen, everything, right? AI, the way I look at kind of solving some of these problems is by pivoting back towards a more generalist education that teaches multiple different topics. And yes, you have a specialism, but you might not necessarily be a special or the specialists as we know them today. So yeah, you might go to study law, but actually do philosophy and ethics and science and biology and so on and so forth, right? Because then when you're using AI, it's much more human and it's much more, you understand and can even prompt in better ways because you have a much more broad view of society and the human condition and the human being. And so again, if I take how could you do this in business today, then yeah, adopt that lifelong learning approach. Start looking at your customers' outcomes, the individuals, what they're trying to achieve, right? And work and design and build products for that. Don't think of it as building, like, I call it like ivory tower product development, kind of going in there, coming out and going, I've built this and it's really cool. It's a really cool widget. And I'm going to tell you this widget because it really does cool things. I don't want that widget. It doesn't do what I want. I want this, right? You need to democratize that kind of innovation and product development to your customers. You need to listen to them, the human output and the human outcomes that they want to deliver, and then build your products around those. And so that's a step towards using AI more ethically, because it's not what's in it for me, it's what can I deliver to my customers, right?
I like that.
And so that's how I think we should be expressing our technology to people. It's how I think we should be looking at how we can educate people internally as well, so much time is focused on like educating on like how to sell our products and stuff like that. Very little is spent how to talk to customers about them, right? And so that's the key thing here, because like I say, it's abstracting that kind of technology point of view, but it's a really interesting time.
Thank you both so much for today's conversation. It's been an amazing discussion and full of insights about how to use AI, the importance of data accuracy, the importance of having good processes in place, and the ones that take all those things into consideration. I'm sure are the ones that will win in this revolution. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your expertise with us today. And for all the ones listening, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe to B2B Marketing Futures on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and please share with your network. Thank you so much.